Hi, I'm Rob.
And I am Rob.
And welcome to Marmalade. This is a new thing we're doing where we look back at the games we've been playing over the last month. Before we go any further, please do press like and subscribe to keep up to date with all the things we do. Now, some of you may be wondering why we've called it Marmalade. Well, everyone talks about gaming jams and gaming jams. To be honest, I'm not really as big a fan of jam as I am of Marmalade.
Well, Games Jam is monthly developers meet, isn't it? So it's a very different thing.
Exactly. And so, Marmalade, we're a bit tangier.
And eaten by old people. I don't partake in Marmalade. It's entirely his fault. Blame it on him if it's a terrible name. Moving on.
As I said, it's just a simple look back at the games we've been playing. Regular listeners and regular viewers of the channel will know that over the last few months, I've kind of fallen out of playing games regularly because of just life situations and things like that. So I took the opportunity this month to go back and get reacquainted with some of the games I was playing earlier on this year, beginning with Atelier Ryza, which I never got around to finishing. And
yeah, you talk about Atelier too much. I mean, if you've been listening to the Geek Show for any sort of time, whether it's video, YouTube, podcast, going way back, Rob talks about Atelier every single opportunity he gets.
I'm a big fan of the franchise, but Atelier Ryza being the latest one in the series, I'd try and finish the games as much as possible. And Atelier Ryza was one that took a little bit of time to grow on me because it was, in certain ways, it's a big departure from the franchise the way it's been so far.
I used it for the most recent episode of Impossible Mission.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, it just looks like bog standard, sort of cel-shaded fantasy RPG, only the lead character has a bikini on. I'm assuming it's a lead character anyway.
With a little beret and like hot pants and stuff like that. I wasn't really a big fan of the character design of Ryza initially. I'm kind of desensitized to it right now, but I always preferred the old character designs where they didn't really emphasize the fan service as much as just making the character look cute. That was it.
Yeah, you know, saying things like I'm kind of desensitized to it now, that's a rocky path that gets you playing that game. That Jugs volleyball game, I can't remember what it's called, so I just call it Jugs volleyball.
Are you on about the Xbox one? The Dead or Alive one?
No, it's separate. Jugs volleyball. That's what it's called. It's Japanese Jugs volleyball, that's it.
Leaving the Japanese Jugs volleyball to one side. Atelier Ryza, for me, it's the kind of game that, you know, when I go back to it after a while, I can, you know, it takes me a little bit of time to get into it, but once I'm into it, it kind of rekindles the old, you know, video game mojo a little bit.
You're putting a lot of pressure on one game.
Well, it's not so much the game, it's the type of game more than the game itself. You know, it's not stressing me out. I'm not having to go for a high score. I'm not challenging other people. I'm not having to fight in MMO battles or anything like that. I'm not stressed about it. I can take my time and just ease myself back in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Comfort food, isn't it? I imagine you fast quite a lot. It's part of your religion, so...
Yeah.
I imagine when you get back into normal eating habits, you eat like a gentle favourite. You don't go... Like, your first meal back's not a 20 chicken piece KFC meal, or other chicken brands are available.
No, you're absolutely right. You need something that's easy on kind of the brain. You know, when you're in stressful situations and stuff like that, it's easy to fall out of love with the things that you normally do. And so when you're trying to get back into the things that you normally do, in this case playing video games, you need something that isn't going to stress you out.
Yeah.
You know, and so Atelier Ryza for me was, you know, the perfect kind of lead back into playing games.
So how was it now it's finished? Is it...
Well, I mean, I haven't finished it. I'm still playing it.
Well, how is it so far then, you know?
It's better than I remembered it was. Because, as I said, it took me a bit of time to get used to it. But now that I've gone back after a little bit of separation, it's actually a lot better than I remember. And maybe that's because of nostalgia. Maybe it's because I've had a chance for my brain to kind of process things. And, you know, we've been through, like, all sorts of other stuff in the world. So I'm a bit more forgiving with things now.
Yeah.
So, there could be a lot of reasons as to why I'm more comfortable with the game now. And as I said, maybe it's a bit of desensitization because I'll be honest, when they announced Atelier Ryza, there was a bit of controversy about the character design for Ryza, and I understood what people were talking about, but I just didn't like the kind of creepy vibe that was coming off it, with people talking about thick thighs and stuff like that. I'm like, why?
Well, that's the fandom, not the game. Don't blame the game for the fandom.
I'm not blaming the game. That's the thing. I think the game is great. It is one of the better Atelier games. I wouldn't say it's the best Atelier game so far. I think there are others that stand like shoulder to shoulder with it, but I'd say it's one of the better Atelier games so far.
So I've been playing a favourite. I think this illustrates just how different people we are. One of your favourites is gentle RPG, Atelier, whatever. And add second title here. I've been playing Yakuza Kiwami 2.
Good call.
And I'll be honest, out of all generally speaking, when you're doing like a major remake of something and you're going back over it and over it and over it, you will improve every time you do a new one.
Yep.
I've not even touched the Goro Majima stuff. He has his own sort of story mode. I don't know how big or small it is, but the fact it's got one,
yeah,
that's great. But I'll be honest, it's not the... as much as I admit I love going around Sotenbori, I think it's called, the part of Osaka that it's set in.
Yeah.
Or Kamurocho in Tokyo.
Yeah.
The bit that I'm really, really liking is probably quite shameful. It's the cabaret club management.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3 minutes a game, and all you really got to do is put the right cabaret girl in the right zone to get the smiley face, and then when they've when they ask for a towel, you give them a towel, or ice, you give them ice. And I've got 18 million yen at the moment. So
yeah, we know what your occupation should be now.
Yeah, if you're in Japan and you need a cabaret club manager, I'm here. But it just goes down in sort of what Yakuza does best, I think. Yakuza in the main game is good. I'm not going to take that away from it. It's great. I wouldn't have stuck through the franchise for however many there've been.
But it's all the little bits that come with it.
It's the mini games, and especially in Kiwami 2 and 6, really hit the stride with what the mini games are and what the mini games do.
Oh god, yeah. Kiwami 2, when I played it, I was blown away. Remember I kept talking about it while I was playing it last year, and I just wouldn't shut up about it.
That's what Yakuza does, I'm kind of disappointed, honestly, that they've released 3, 4, and 5 as a trilogy.
Yeah.
Given how much they're improving game on game, I'd be excited to see what they could do with that, because, you go back to 3, 4, and 5, those are like crunky-ass PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 3 games.
Yeah.
And I know they're doing Like a Dragon, so they couldn't have they're not as big a studio as their immediate or out-of-the-blue cult success might suggest, but at the same time, I want those games, like, here's a word, Kiwami-ified.
Yeah. I actually agree with you on this. I would love to see 3, 4, and 5 Kiwami-ified.
Because in number 5, you're a driver. Is it a driving instructor or a taxi driver? I can't remember. You're a taxi driver. And the thing is, the driving bit in 5 is better than some of the actual dedicated driving games that you get on the PS3. It's basically driving simulator as well, because you don't just bomb it down the streets. You've got a passenger in the back. You have to treat them great, so you have to brake where you're supposed to. You can't run over any of the crossings. Yeah. You've got to be a good, upstanding citizen, and then get out of the car and then beat people up with bikes.
Yeah, it's not like The Getaway or Driver or somewhere like that. Or some game like that.
I'm going to say this, I think Yakuza might actually be my favourite franchise in video games. I don't think there's anything that really competes with it for me.
I'll be honest, I've got, for different genres, I've got like different favourite franchises. And Yakuza, for me, in terms of the weird, violent, but really fun game, Yakuza is my first choice.
Well, if you're going to sort of break it down into genres, I'm going to make an even bolder statement. Yakuza is my favourite open world franchise.
Not a bad call at all.
A lot of people will say, but it's a very small open world and blah, blah, blah. But no. Shut up. It's great.
I challenge any other person to point out any game that has the level of detail that Yakuza Kiwami 2 has just in Osaka.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You know.
And also, it's really fun to do that move where you got like your fury up. I can't remember what to call it. A heat mode, yeah.
Yeah. And
you throw people into the river.
Yes. I know one of my favourite bits from Kiwami 2 is always, and I will find this on YouTube every so often when I'm feeling a bit nostalgic for the game, and I will watch this. It's the construction song.
Yeah. Yes.
See, that reaction right there is why I love it.
It's Goro Majima. It's the effect he has on people.
Exactly.
And I think we got to stop here because we could just do this first inaugural Marmalade episode just talking about how much we love Yakuza Kiwami 2. So let's just draw a line here.
Speaking of weirdly Japanese, right? You know how everyone has been talking about this game, the Fall Guys, or whatever it is?
Fall Guys, yeah. I mean, it's biggest PS Plus success ever, and honestly, it just looks like I'd get annoyed after about half an hour playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like it's a knockout, total wipeout, that sort of game, yeah?
But with bean people.
Yeah, with bean
Adorable
people.
bean people.
It's one of these weird games where it's a bit like Gang Beasts in that it's got this mob mechanic and you kind of competing against other people. And so I was looking at it and I tried playing Fall Guys and I thought, okay, I think I know of a game that kind of is like this, but it seems more like Takeshi's Castle. It's more like Takeshi's Castle is to Wipeout in terms of video games. I think I'm explaining that right. Maybe not, but we'll get to that. Anyway, it's called Nippon Marathon.
I've not even heard of that.
Yeah, Nippon Marathon is...
Just before you get into it, on title alone, it sounds like it's about the Japan Marathon.
Yeah, basically, yeah, right? See, Nippon Marathon is one of these games where you... Like I said, it's basically Takeshi's Castle, right? It's Takeshi's Castle, but it's a race. Yeah. And what you have to do is you have to take part in a 4-person race across Japan, across different areas in Japan. It's been out since like 2018, and it's one of those bizarrely Japanese games where it's got glitches, but you kind of forgive the glitches because it's just so quirky and odd and weird and fun. And you have 4 main characters: an old guy in a sailor suit who has a dual personality, who likes the feeling of a train passing by, but also hates the feeling of a train passing by.
That's a weirdly specific character trait.
Yeah, you got another character who was the one that I was playing in my recent playthrough, called Suguru Maestro, or something like that. And he is a dog person, not an actual person dressed up as a dog, but a dog person wearing one of those body warmer type jackets, the sleeveless puffer jackets.
Yeah.
Right, wearing one of those, and he is on a quest to set up the Suguru Maestro dating agency, not officially incorporated yet. It says that every single time he mentions the dating agency. He's trying to gather data, and he's going to take part in the Nippon Marathon. Then you got another girl who's a marine biologist who dresses as a narwhal, but everyone thinks she's dressed as a unicorn, and she hates that.
Narwhals are much cooler than unicorns. Yeah. Sorry, internet.
Yeah, she also does narwhal yoga as well, which is basically lying on the floor and pretending to be a narwhal. And then you got a guy dressed as a lobster who the first meeting with him was, don't drop your contact lens this time.
Okay.
And you basically take part in these 4-player races through these obstacle courses, effectively, through different locales in Japan. And the whole point is to win the race and finally beat handsome Hazuki, who has been dominating the Nippon Marathon for the last decade. All the while, there is a subplot about some secret organization who has some sinister agenda, which is revealed in the story mode.
Hang on. This is basically like Mario Party on heavy hallucinogenics.
Basically, yeah.
That just happens to have an incredibly detailed story mode.
The story mode is so bizarrely random. I mean, you got a news presenter who just keeps interviewing random people. You've got this camera woman who every time Handsome Hazuki's name is mentioned, she's like, Hazuki-sama! It was like, watch the camera!
Okay.
And the graphics on it aren't great. They're basically like late PS2, early PS3 type graphics. You're talking like Nintendo Wii type stuff, right?
It doesn't matter.
But it's this weird thing. It's one of those games where it's very much a Marmite game. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. I kind of love it because it's just weird and janky, and you forgive the glitches because it's just bizarre. It's
like a super high pitch Japanese sense of humour. If you don't like the sort of weird stuff that Japanese humour does,
yeah,
it sounds like it's not gonna work for you. Because let's be honest, the Japanese sense of humour, there's the puns and the wordplay, and there's also the really, really weird things that make no sense, but they just do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with Japanese comedy, maybe not so much the like TV stuff and the live action stuff, maybe more the anime type stuff. If you're familiar with stuff like Gintama or Astro Fighter Sunred, stuff like that, then there may be some stuff.
It sounds very Arakawa.
It is more Arakawa and Astro Fighter Sunred than it is Gintama.
That's Arakawa Under the Bridge, just sort of give it its full title.
Yeah, it is more of that type of comedy, the bizarre, weird stuff. But you know what? It's fun in small doses. It's the kind of game where you can pick it up and put it down and just it doesn't require any thought. And it's got some really strange mini games, like multiplayer mini games. There's a bowling game where you have giant pins and a shopping trolley and a ramp, right?
Don't say anything else. I think just leaving those few facts as they are is enough.
Right. And there's another game called Lobster. It's basically a mini version of the marathon where you basically have to navigate this assault course, and if you beat your opponent, you get a letter until you spell out the word lobster.
Oh, so it's like sort of like Skate and Tony Hawk's.
Yeah, I mean, the scoring systems, you remember Micro Machines?
Yeah, because I was burnt and hurt by the recent one on PS4.
The scoring system is a bit like the scoring system on Micro Machines, so you get more stars for coming first and for increasing your popularity, and your popularity also plays a factor in the whole thing as well. It's all very complicated and weird.
Yeah. Other game I've been playing, and Games Pass for PC, I'm going to leave probably the favourite new one of the month to last. So this one is... I can't really say a lot about this because it's kind of a run seal, but for American or international viewers, does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Streets of Rage 4.
Ooh.
It's Streets of Rage. I don't really know what... I mean, I really enjoy it. It's nice to... It's so... It feels exactly like it was when you left off, on its sort of core basis, Yeah. It's got a few characters. I think Axel is back, but he is like a mountain of a man.
Yeah.
I think it was Skate, was he called in the originals? Skate, he was just a kid, a black kid who was on roller skates. He's in it, but he's like a police unlockable character, and you play through it. He's an unlockable character. There's his daughter who basically wields a guitar as a weapon because, it's a game, of course you do. Female character who I've not played as much, who I think was from the originals as well.
Is that the one with the red dress?
Yes.
Yeah, she's from the originals.
Basically, I can't remember the name of the character from Mortal Kombat, but he had metal arms.
Jax.
Black guy, metal arms. Yeah, it's basically Streets of Rage's Jax. I can't remember the originals that well because we're talking about, mid-90s at the very latest that they sort of went out of circulation and became uncool.
Yeah.
But in this, it's got sort of a high power mode moves where you lose a bit of life, and if you hit people back without being hit in return, you get some of that life back. It's like a high energy, high impact move with lots of sort of particle effects. And I do remember it had like sort of super moves where you press two buttons and you collected stars. That was there in the originals, wasn't it? That's back.
What about the wall chicken and the floor chicken and the bin chicken?
Bin chicken. Not wall chicken. There's bin chicken and there's bin noodles and there's bin ramen and there's like if you go into the options, you can pick a variety of bin food. Like small bin food and big bin food. And honestly, I don't know whether I don't know if you completed any of the originals.
I completed the first three.
Because they weren't easy. Because games generally in those days weren't easy, but this one has like a wicked difficulty spike.
Really?
Yeah, where I think the first 4, I'm only on level 6 or 7, I think there's about 11 levels by the way the sort of the map. Because you have like a map with this loading screen and it shows you what isn't done and what is done.
Yeah.
And it's just super difficult. It's got like a point, I think it's level 7 actually, where it starts throwing 2 bosses at you at once. And I'm playing this solo, so it becomes incredibly difficult.
Yeah, Streets of Rage is one of those games where you really want to play it with a friend because it becomes really tough later on.
Yeah, I mean, there's some levels which I did, like with the big Jack's proxy, really, really easy, and other levels I couldn't do with him. So it's like certain RPGs have like, you have a playthrough where you have this character playthrough, and then the next time you do it is a certain other character playthrough. This, it's whatever, at least in solo play, it's whatever character fits the mold for that level.
Yeah.
And you can't really say whether I'm loving it or not, because it's just the constant challenge.
I have one question for you. Going back to the original Streets of Rage, right? Because there was another game that was very similar to Streets of Rage, and I have to ask, which one did you prefer? Did you prefer Streets of Rage or Final Fight?
I mean, out of the two, I preferred Streets of Rage, but if you throw in another type of that game in the mode, I was a much bigger fan of Golden Axe.
Ooh, good call.
I was always a Golden Axe kid.
See, now you've mentioned Golden Axe, and I've got the music for Golden Axe playing in my head. You know, da 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 da.
Yeah, I'd never do tunes again because you're basically tone deaf, Rob. But yeah, it's Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you see is what you get.
Speaking of what you see is what you get, the final game that I've been spending a lot of time with this month is a game that it's basically a remake, a reboot of an old franchise that I really adored when it first appeared. The first game came out at the same time in the same year as Final Fantasy VII, right? And it was the second biggest selling JRPG of that year after Final Fantasy VII, and yet hardly anyone remembered it until the remake came out. And even with that, loads of people didn't play the remake, and I was amazed at that, because the remake is just, for me, it's got this trace of nostalgia, but like revamped and reworked and just so much better than I remembered it. Sakura Wars is because it started off as this kind of role-playing, dating sim, visual novel, RPG type thing. But, right, imagine this concept, right? Who comes up with this idea? You have an alternate reality Earth, right? And in this world, the steampunk revolution has happened. But you also have magic in this world, right? And so you have steampunk samurais and steampunk mechs, and you have like steam-powered all sorts of stuff, like airships and stuff like that. But you also have invasions of demons and demon beasts and stuff like that, and you have different divisions called Combat Review, right? They're called Combat Review around the world, and they protect the major countries and the major cities and stuff from the demon beasts and the demons and stuff. But they also have to have a cover, and the one that you get to take charge of is called the Flower Division in Tokyo, and they are a shadow of their former selves, and they basically are in the Grand Theatre in Tokyo, and they are an actual acting troupe.
This is so anime. It's so anime.
The thing is, this is the story from the 90s when anime hadn't when they were still doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff with anime, when they didn't really try and cater to the fans, they were more trying to tell stories that they wanted to tell. And so there's a marked difference in terms of the actual story, in terms of the characters in this game. And just from the very beginning of playing it, I was sitting there with this stupid grin on my face going, this is so much better than I remembered it. The character, the way they're animated.
Well, it is in this version. If you played like the pure PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 version,
PlayStation 1 version,
I doubt you'd be saying the same thing.
But that's the thing. This isn't just a reboot; it's an homage to all of the other games that came before, right? And the anime version, the anime series, and everything like that. Because it's just telling the same story, but in a new form. But the level of detail is really, really good. And that's one of the reasons why I like it. Because, I'm a big fan of Trails of Cold Steel.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I do.
Because of the way it tells its story. It's got this massive story told over like 4 games and, or however many games. And I like it because it gives you the feeling of an open world, but in a really small environment, right? Just exploring the theatre itself is, it's massive. The building is huge. Remember I was telling you about my castle in Dragon Age Inquisition?
Yeah, and usually when you do that, I sort of phase out because Dragon Age Inquisition is kind of my gaming kryptonite.
But remember I told you I got a castle and I could basically go exploring the castle, and it took ages to explore the entire castle. Exploring the Grand Theatre in Sakura Wars is a bit like that. It takes ages just to explore the theatre. For me, between Nippon Marathon and Atelier Ryza and Sakura Wars, I feel like I've had the best kind of reintroduction to games for me. One is pure nostalgia for me, but in a revamped form. Another one is kind of, gaming comfort food. And another one is just this weird little bizarre game that I can just pick up and play whenever I feel like. So for me, it feels like the perfect kind of reintroduction to games.
That's good, You have had a gamer's fatigue, which has basically lasted this whole generation.
Yeah,
haven't you?
Well, almost, yeah.
And personally, if I was fatigued by something as long as that, I'd just give up. I'd just move on.
Yeah. Well, this feels like a great reintroduction. It's rekindling that love I have for games, but in a nice, gentle way.
Stay away from Ubisoft games, because they'll won't do anything for you, frankly.
Well, what would be the perfect kind of way to cap it off is just a decent player manager mode on a decent football game.
Because basically, if you were going to play a FIFA game, a Ubisoft game, sorry, you're basically like climbing up to the top of Mount Everest, and then at the top, there's some doofus who just kicks you right down to the bottom.
Yeah.
You think you've got there, you think you're back, and then Ubisoft doofus kicks you back down to earth again. My last one is a game which, the second I saw it, I think it was a Microsoft press conference with the indie titles, I was just, ooh, that looks nice. Spiritfarer.
Ooh, yeah.
See? There you go. Almost echo right there.
No, Spiritfarer is one that caught my attention as well. I looked at it, I was like, ooh, that looks nice.
And I've been playing this on PC, Xbox, Games Pass for PC.
Yeah.
Basic story for what it is, you are the new Spiritfarer, which is basically death. You pick people up around the world and you do their last favour for them in the earthly realm, and you allow them to pass on. All hand-drawn. It's got incredibly long and drawn-out hug mechanics. It's like the most elaborate hug, because you want to make people happy, so you give them food. And also, the pickiest people who you make food for, they won't have the same meal twice. Bloody hell, you're just being difficult now.
See, when you said it's got elaborate hug mechanics, I was thinking, like, what, does it do arm positions and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, because you got animals on your ship, and you develop your ship, and your ship gets bigger and better and more beautiful.
Yeah.
And you give them food, and you talk to them, and I also just give them hugs. Yeah. It's just therapy, the video game, honestly.
Yeah.
It looks gorgeous. I've not finished it yet because I'm taking my time with it. I don't want to sort of rush through this because it feels like the sort of game that you just let it wash over you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I've needed from games. Just exactly what you just said.
I mean, it's been compared to Persona in the sense of you got all these things that you have to do. But in the case of Persona, it's this constant ticking clock where you have to do everything super, super quickly. If you don't do it, you've lost it.
Yeah.
There's no such thing here. You can just take your time and relax. Go fishing.
Yeah.
Make some food. Build the kitchen. Cook things in your kitchen. And you've also got a cat who also is a Spiritfarer, because you've got like this ball of energy, really, where you can turn into oven mitts, turn into an oar. You can turn into a scythe to cut your garden. You can get a garden on your boat. You can turn into a saw, cut down trees. And yeah, it does all of this stuff. You could say it's kind of like Persona mixed with Animal Crossing, which just sounds broken. It sounds like it shouldn't work.
Yeah, it does sound like it shouldn't work.
I haven't played it. I mean, apparently it's more than 20 hours and I've played about, 2.5. But it's like sunk its teeth into me pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that has to do with the art style, because this is one thing I'm really digging. I mean, we've talked about it on Impossible Mission, how video game graphics are kind of apexing and hitting their peak.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've really, really enjoyed with what graphics are doing right now is hand-drawn animation graphics.
Yes.
So stuff like this and Cuphead, and there's probably more, but they're not really coming to me right now.
There's one that really caught my attention recently. I think it was in one of the conferences as well, called Sable.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. It's not the same sort of hand-drawn animation, but it's very, very of its own kind.
Yeah, but Sable to me was just kind of, imagine if Luke Skywalker never left Tatooine. Instead, he went exploring ruins and became like a kind of sci-fi Tomb Raider with his own like speeder bike and stuff like that.
It's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous, yeah. Spiritfarer. I could just sit there and watch the characters just mill about. Admittedly, they've got the sort of resting animation, so it get boring pretty quickly, but at the same time, it's just the animation, man. Ah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, you've been heavily into that sort of more. Well, I hate to call it cartoonish. It's more artistic.
Yeah, because there's another one that I'm going to be playing soon called Gris, which also has a.
Yes.
I mean, Gris. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I don't know.
Gris is really good. You're going to love it.
Stunning art style as well. Because that's what appeals me to games. You can keep... photorealism can suck a fatty for all I care. You know, it's all about... It's all about photo... It's all about sort of hand-drawn, gorgeous animation for me.
Well, it's what I said to you before, right? Your eye can only process so much detail, so what's the point?
Make it appealing.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
all the photorealistic games I've played, I can't remember them one from another, but the ones that genuinely are gorgeous, I can remember them all.
Do you remember you covered Mutazione?
Yeah, that's another one, which is hand-drawn animation as well, which is stunning. Yeah. Play Mutazione, it's wonderful. Swamp opera, wonderful.
Yes, swamp opera. That's what we've been playing this month.
How about you? Comment below, or comment about what we've been playing. Give your take on the games that we've talked about.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it for this month's episode of Marmalade. We'll see you next month with what we've been playing in September.
Yes.
So, until the next episode of Marmalade, you can check out all the other stuff we got on our channel, and you can also check out the stuff we do on our website, thegeekshow.co.uk. Until next time, thanks for watching.